With one of the three who sit on the editorial board of our local hometown newspaper, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Good morning, Deb Peterson.
Good morning, McGraw.
I'm fascinated by this transfer news story, this transfer school story.
Fascinated is one word to describe how one might feel about it.
There's so many different tentacles to this, and I find it fascinating that so many people talked about school choice, and now we're finding out that really nobody wants school choice.
Well, I think the people in Kirkwood said they were willing to embrace, to some extent, school choice.
To 100.
175 today.
That is
and that's
correct.
Another thing. I wrote the other day about, how are they coming up with some of these numbers? And then suddenly today, Kirkwood's accepting 175 transfer students, and Melville is accepting 218.
Right.
They found those seats magically. It's a very interesting commentary. And, the other part of this is that many of the other school districts in North St. Louis County are also not in the best shape. And this is going to, at some point, require a state solution. This is not going to be, it's just not going to be acceptable that neighboring districts are going to be the only ones who are affected and are charged with the task of educating children who are in failing districts. And for people to continue, and you've been among them, to look for the systemic reasons for why school districts are failing and try to fix them, that is way too late. The horse is out of that barn. You can't just go back and say, let's give all these people jobs and let's have parents be more responsible. In theory, absolutely, that's the right attitude. But in practice, how do you do that?
You're right. And throwing more gasoline on the fire. You know the dirty little secret about this that no one's talking about?
What?
Is that the city of St. Louis has some type of provisional accreditation, which is sort of a made-up status, so that you can't. So the kids who are trapped in the St. Louis City School District, they have some type of provisional accreditation. So the law isn't there for them because there's quote unquote provisional accreditation.
They were unaccredited though for quite a while, and then they achieved provisional accreditation by improving the district.
But that's sort of a made up term.
It's not a made up term. What you're saying is true though, that it does prevent the children from having alternatives.
Right.
However, the city is chock full of charter schools, and that is an alternative. Maybe not chock full, but there are some good good alternatives available to kids in the city. The KIPP schools have shown themselves to be very good charter schools, whereas the kids in the county don't have that option. So there are alternatives, and it's the same thing as the kids in the county. They need alternatives also.
Well, I love the fact that everyone's talking about school choice for their kid, but when it talks about about wait a minute, some kids gonna come into my school district? Hey,
right.
Wait
I want
a minute.
my kids to have school choice, not your kids
right.
have school choice. And that is not, this whole idea of basing school district on basing the money in a district on the property taxes is, patently unfair. I mean, it's obvious that segregates the wealthier people from the poorer people.
Well, except that, the city of St. Louis spends more per kid than anybody else, and or close to
per
it.
pupil spending under the state formula is all over the board. So some of the poorest districts get the most money from the state, but that doesn't mean they have the other resources necessary to have a district that functions well.
Yeah.
Plus, a lot of those districts are rife with administrative problems and these entrenched bureaucracies that are very hard to get rid of. And there's a lot of literature on the subject, and I am not a scholar of the subject, but I do believe that this is a crisis across the country. We're not the only city, the only city with a very shrinking urban population. You can't just say, oh, okay, well, while we fix your community and get your parents jobs and help everybody get stabilized, forget education for the next, 50 years, however long that's going to take. The kids who are there now are the ones who need the chance. So let's give it to them. Let's just stop the bickering and stop the closing of the doors and say, you know what, maybe it's not going to be the end of the world. I mean, my kids went to the Kirkwood schools, participate, during the time when the voluntary DSEC program was going on. And, it really just didn't was not a bad thing. I mean, it was, kids got along well. There were the same problem kids you'd have in any school district. There were the same, disruptions, but it wasn't the end of the world.
I think that we are kidding ourselves if we think that we educate the same way for a kid who sits in the Ladue School District and the kid who sits in the Riverview Garden School District. The fact that we're trying to teach them the same way is just moronic.
And when you lower the expectations for kids, you're going to lower the learning level, and that's what happens.
Well, I'm not saying lowering it. I'm just saying the way the two different kids are walking into the schools, two different worlds. And so the kid in Riverview has to be taught different things than the kid in Ladue. I'm not saying less.
That's not right.
I'm not saying
why.
What do you mean why? Because the kid, chances are the kid comes from a family that is dysfunctional at some level. So there are
do you teach the kid how to function with a dysfunctional family? No, you teach the kid the same skill set that you send the kids to do out.
I'm saying the same way is wrong. Because the kid, look, a one-size-fits-all doesn't work. Because the kid in the Ladue School District is coming to school with different set of skills than the kid who comes in whose parents have 3 jobs.
There you go. The best argument I have heard for early childhood education. So that kids start out, all of them, with the same number of words in their vocabulary. So you don't have the kid from Ladue who has a 4,000-word vocabulary by the age of 5, compared to a kid who maybe has a 2,000-word vocabulary.
But that's exactly my point. You're teaching them the same thing, and they're coming in from two different worlds.
Start earlier. Start with early childhood education. That's what's required.
Do
not leave it up to parents who are stressed in a million different directions already.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone's got an opinion, and that's Deb Peterson's. What is where do we find you on the editorial page?
You find me all over the editor. I'm there. My name's on the editorial page. It says Deborah Peterson.
STL.
We are there.
What is
we are there for you, McGraw. But I'm going to be gone next week, by the way, to my son's wedding. I know.
I tried to talk him out of that. It didn't work?
No, I think he tried to talk you into it. It didn't work either.
All right.
Be chatting.
Be safe. Safe travels. STLtoday.com/news. Is that right?
/the platform.
/the platform. That's why I was asking you.
You're pretty close.
The mother of the groom, ladies and gentlemen, Deb Peterson. All right. Talk to you in 2 weeks.
Take care. Bye.
850 KTRS and STLtoday.com.